I was thinking about something today, and I'd really love to know how many people relate. Throughout my whole life, I found it really hard to make friends and to keep friends. Thinking back, every friend that I've ever had, I have no memory of approaching anyone and saying, hey, do you want to be friends? To be honest, I have next to no memory of how any of the friends that I've ever had became my friends. And I've had lots of different friends throughout my childhood, so it kind of fascinates me when people have friends in their 20s, 30s, and they're like, well, we've been friends since primary school. That's fascinating to me. In primary school alone, I went through maybe 3 or 4 different friend groups, and somehow in pretty much every single one of them there was pairings, and then there was me. In most cases it was like, these are the 2 best friends, and then there's another one stood next to them. There was like quite a big friendship group, and it was like pairs of people and then me in the friendship group. Not to say that I had an awful childhood, because it wasn't always bad and I didn't always feel completely left out, and that's not what I'm trying to say at all, but it is just kind of interesting to look back on and think, what does that mean? What does that mean for who I am? What does that mean for how I interact with the world, that somehow I'm always the odd one? I don't know. Maybe it's the suspected autism, maybe it's something else, I don't know. I guess we'll never know, but I can remember, okay wait, I'm going to count the different friendships throughout primary school. So 5 kind of different eras, 5 kind of different groups throughout primary school, which, for those of you who don't know, primary school, what, from age, I don't know whether to include nursery. I guess nursery does count because I did have friends from nursery, so I guess maybe from the ages of like 4 until 11. I don't know how come that is. I always hear people saying, oh, I have my best friend, we've been best friends for years, we've known each other since forever, you know, childhood friends. In a way, I'm like really jealous of that. I'm super jealous of the fact that I'll never have that experience of knowing someone from a young age and being their closest person and watching each other grow in that way and sharing so many moments like that to the point where they're as close as your family. I don't think it's possible for me to have that experience now, but it's kind of sad thinking about it. And sometimes I think about some of the old friends that went away over the years, and I think, I wonder how it would be if we were still friends today. But in a way, I am satisfied with how my life turned out, but I do wonder how things would look different. I don't know. But in a way, I'm also grateful for how things turned out. I don't know, it's been kind of difficult, because especially as someone who is prone to losing friends, I guess, I have so many memories of just being alone all the time. Even when I wasn't alone, I felt alone. Throughout school, there were so many times when I found myself in between these friendship groups, or sometimes I would be in a class where I don't have my friends in that class, and there would always be people that I talk to. It wouldn't be any kind of case where I don't speak to anybody in the class, but that was always kind of the length of it. Outside of class, there was not really any real friendship past that point, and even in class they would have their own friends, and I find it hard, as I've mentioned, I find it hard to make friends, I find it hard to talk to people. I'm a very awkward kind of person, so it was never easy for me to just kind of try and include myself into those conversations or those already established friendship groups where I didn't feel as though I was wanted. I remember after prom, I went home and I was like, wow, that was so much fun. Prom ended really late, it was like midnight. We were like one of the last to leave the venue, and I got home and I remember hearing about it maybe the next day, that there was an after party with people that, of course, when you're in secondary school, you kind of know everybody in your classes. You know everybody, even if you're not like super close, you know them, they know you, you speak, you know? It's not like you're strangers or anything. But I was never able to get close enough to those people, and so when I got home, I'd heard that they'd gone on to have an after party. I can't tell you how jealous I was that I didn't even know that there was going to be an after party happening. My biggest upset about my teenagehood was the fact that when I turned 18, I didn't really have anybody to celebrate with. So turning 18 is like a big deal. You can drink, and usually for your 18th birthday, you go out, you celebrate, you have drinks. I didn't drink until almost a year after because I didn't have anybody to celebrate with. I just feel like because of my habit of not being able to get close to people and being awkward, I missed out on so many experiences that I feel really sad about now, because you only get this time of your life once, you know? And I'm nearly out of my teenagehood now, and it just feels like I really haven't had the teenage experience. I haven't dated either. That stuff is all really scary to me too. It all comes with social interaction, right? I feel like I'm putting on an act, and I don't like that. I don't want to put on an act. I feel uncomfortable lying. I feel uncomfortable pretending to be someone I'm not. The whole thing makes me very uncomfortable. So I'm grateful now that I have friends again, and friends that I love. But once again, it just was kind of like a circumstantial thing. I didn't go up to them and say, hey, let's be friends, you know? It just kind of happened that way, and I'm very fortunate for the way that things have played out. In a way, that's what makes me have less regrets, because it led up to where I am now. But I will never stop reminiscing and thinking about how things could have been different. Well, if there's one thing that I can say I know for sure, is the feeling of having no one to talk to, no one to share how your day went, or to, you know, have a laugh with, or go out to places with. I spent several years just like sitting at home, not doing anything. Basically for the majority of my childhood, I barely ever went out, barely ever did anything. I would be so jealous seeing groups of friends on my Instagram feed going out and doing things, you know, having little cute outings and stuff. You know, the classic get into teams of blank, or, you know, anything like that, and you don't really have an option. I've been through plenty of my fair share of that. Going to class, being alone in class. I just wanted to add this in really quick. The craziest thing to me as well was that in college, even my teacher made fun of me for the fact that I didn't speak to anyone and the fact that I had no friends, almost as if it was like a conscious decision that I was making, that I didn't like anyone in the class, that I didn't want to have friends or something, when it couldn't be further from the truth. I was really down in that time of my life, and the fact that even my teacher was making fun of me for it really put me down. He was kind of a jokey teacher, and I know he didn't mean anything by it, but sometimes I was like, you're a teacher, please like know where to draw the line. I was just really struggling to fit in with anyone. In any of my classes, nobody felt like they actually would get along right with me. So, and even where I live, there's not a lot of options for other things that I could do to meet people outside, and obviously university gave me that chance, and I'm super grateful for that. But if I could give my advice to anybody who is in that situation and they're like, I don't have any option, turn within. Do things that you want to do, don't let being alone stop you. I went to my first concert. I travelled to London and went to my first concert alone at 17 because I didn't have anybody interested in the same thing, and I didn't have any friends at that time, but I had a great time. It was genuinely like the happiest. I was like the happiest that I'd ever been in that moment at that concert. And to think, like, imagine if I was so scared to be independent that I had let myself miss out on that, you know what I mean? So definitely don't let that stop you. I mean, it's sad. I know it's sad. I spent so many times where I'd sit in bed and cry and just be like, why? What's wrong with me? So what is the problem with me that makes everybody just think, you're okay to talk to, but I would rather spend my time with anybody else. But yeah, I don't know. Thanks for listening to me rant. Does anybody relate to this?